This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by $1 Genre. Hey everybody, it's AJ here. Just letting you know that I have started a new project called $1 Genre, and here is how it works. This year, or next year, 2022, my New Year's resolution, I aim to make one film a month. So that's 12 films, 12 short films, I should say. And I want you guys to be involved. And the way you can be involved is over at patreon.com/$1 genre. If you go on there for $1, donate $1, and every month you will get to suggest and vote on the genre of the next short film I'm going to make. Does that sound like a familiar business model to Cult Popture? Maybe I saw something that worked and thought maybe I could do it again. So, if you want to get involved, head on over now. There is a poll going as this episode has been released for what the genre of the first short film of the month will be. You can go over there. You can suggest anything from rom-com to Soviet propaganda. Whatever you think is a genre, suggest it. And if it gets enough votes, I will make a short film based on that suggestion. This is a super exciting project. I'm really excited about it, so I hope you guys are all really excited for it too. You can also follow $1 Genre on Twitter and Instagram and subscribe to a YouTube channel. But the main thing is the Patreon, so if you want to support AJ and a new project and you want to make me make something stupid or cool, up to you, then head on over to $1 Genre, patreon.com/$1 genre, and get involved. Some of you are already there already, and I really appreciate that. So, yeah, cool. Let's get to the episode.
Merry couple of days after Christmas. Is it not? It's not New Year yet. I don't
I'll
think,
check.
Right? No, it's the 27th.
Recording this ahead of time, so yeah. Whoa, what an energy to start the show with.
Last episode of the year. We made it. It is.
Oh wow, we made it through 2021.
Yeah, barely.
Richard, what the fuck is this, bro? What are we doing?
Well, this is the Cult Popture podcast, which I'm sure you well know. You've been co-hosting it for fucking 5 years.
I've never heard of that.
Well,
who is this man?
It's me, Mario.
He looks just like me.
He's just like me. I'm just like you. Like the Barbie thing.
Thank you. That's right, it's Barbie. We're returning to the wonderful world of Barbie.
Yep.
The joke would be if we were doing Barbie, we're returning to the wonderful world of the MCU. Just kidding, it's Barbie.
Well, yeah, we actually were planning to return to the wonderful world of Barbie at some point this year, but then just kind of never came to fruition. But yeah, no, we are returning to the MCU because you may have noticed there's been a lot of MCU things released this year, of the MCU, of course, being the Marvel Cinematic Universe for those not in the know. But yeah, so we did, in anticipation of Avengers Endgame, we did a big series of covering the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We did that in episodes because they were very clearly marketed and released in Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. And they've kind of said they're doing away with phases, but it's also kind of referred to as Phase 4, what they're doing now. But they're just going such full steam ahead with films and releasing so many of them in such a short amount of time that by the time we got to all of Phase 4 being out, it was going to be like 15 TV shows and 10 movies. So it just seemed unreasonable to wait for that. And then we didn't want to, because I feel like the MCU is such a large part of like the cultural zeitgeist that we didn't want to make the conversation exclusive to Patreon. So we had the idea to do that, from here on out. Maybe if you guys think this is a good idea, we'll do a Marvel retrospective each year, divided into today's episode is going to be on the Marvel movies released in 2021 because there was 4 this year, the most they've ever done in 1 year. And then in 2 weeks' time, we're going to do the Marvel TV shows released in 2021. And This is more akin to something like the most disappointing films of the year podcast that we do, rather than an episode of Film Franchise Fortnights or Film Franchise Follow-Ups. By that, I mean we haven't rewatched the films specifically for this because, because they're Marvel movies and they were the peak of discussion in cinema for, weeks after their release. I feel like they stick in your mind a lot clearer than, Phantasm 4 does.
Sure. And because Marvel didn't release anything in 2020, is that right?
That's correct.
Isn't that crazy then that they went from the first year in 10 years where they didn't release anything to releasing the most by far, because it's not just the movies, it's the 4 TV shows, which is insane that they released 4 TV shows. I think that's crazy. That one would have been sufficient.
5 TV shows.
5?
Yeah. WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, What If, and Hawkeye.
Oh my god! Why is that considered TV shows take longer to make? they are longer. They take longer.
Well, it's because they were supposed to release a bunch last year and just held stuff over. Right. But we could have done almost all of our film franchise follow-ups be Marvel this year.
Yeah, that's true.
But so we decided to not let ourselves do Marvel.
And
apart
also,
from we did Venom 2.
One thing we should, which is, I guess, the new MCU adjacent.
Yeah, Sonyverse weird. Yeah.
So, as well as this, it's worth saying as well that there is not currently, if you go and listen to the 3 phases we did back in mid 2019, there is not currently a free way to listen to our discussion on Spider-Man Far From Home, which I'm very sorry. We've been juggling around the podcast schedule a lot recently of upcoming episodes, and one of them was going to be another Patreon sample pack where I was going to put Far From Home film franchise follow-ups in it so that people can listen to that for free so that they can come in informed.
And so you could make a mega cut of...
Yeah, but that's not what's going to happen, I guess. So.
It will happen, but maybe not till March, we're thinking. It'll become apparent as the year continues.
Look forward for a dud bonus or a dud Patreon sample pack episode that I know you all hate. Look forward to that in March.
I would hate it if I was you.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm not. I'm me.
And with that,
comes great responsibility. Yeah. So the first the 4 Marvel films released this year were the long-awaited Black Widow, directed by Kate Shortland; Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, directed by Destin Daniel Cretton; Eternals, directed by Chloe Zhao; and Spider-Man No Way Home, directed by John Watts. If you're listening to this and just blanket sort of thing, won't be spoilers for No Way Home until we start talking about No Way Home, and so we will make that clear when we're beginning that conversation, but you've got probably over an hour's worth of content before we get to that point. Or not, I don't know. I cannot tell the future. I don't know how long we are going to talk. This could be 45 minutes long. This could be 3 hours long. Who knows?
And so, it's not like I'm sitting in a sweltering hot loft and would love to get for this not to be 3 hours.
I have dinner plans too. So yeah.
You said that with the tone of AJ, it's the podcast. It's not up to us, buddy. We've all got to make sacrifices.
Yeah. So Black Widow, it came out in June 2021. So this one was supposed to come out last year, obviously, but due to the pandemic, it was delayed. Its original release was May 2020, got delayed 3 times due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This one was released simultaneously in theaters and on Disney Plus's Premier Access. So where you could pay, in New Zealand, it's $40 to unlock it, and then after a few months, it's just free on Disney Plus anyway. So, AJ, what is Black Widow about?
So Black Widow was set Oh God, Black Widow. I should have realized that this was my responsibility before we recorded. It is set between Captain America: Civil War and Avengers: Infinity War, and it is about Black Widow, aka Natasha Romanoff, played by
Romanoff.
Scarlett Johansson, and it's sort of this adventure she goes on between those two films while on the run from the government after the Sokovia Accords and all that sort of thing, that stuff that happened in Civil War, and she's essentially on a mission to find like the truth about her past and free the other Black Widows from the Black Widow program that she was a part of. And along the way, she's joined by her sort of not really family, which includes a fake mum, a fake dad, and a fake sister. Or are they real brothers? They're real sisters.
Yeah, fake sister.
Okay. And they once existed as Russian plants in the USA before defecting back to Russia. And they include David Harbour, who plays what's his name, Red Guardian, which is like a knockoff Captain America. There's also Rachel Weisz plays the mum, and Florence Pugh plays the younger sister, who is also trained as a Black Widow.
Yeah. And so the film very much feels like it's an origin story for Florence Pugh's character, Yelena Belova, as much as it is an interquill for Scarlett Johansson. What did you think? So the villain in the film as well, we have Taskmaster, who the Taskmaster's ability is like sort of in a photographic memory, an ability to perfectly imitate anyone's fighting style, and kind of goes through like a greatest hits of some of the Avengers. From
something I didn't realize was happening, because I guess I just don't commit fighting styles of characters to memory.
Well, I mean, it's when, it's like having a shield, doing the Bucky's knife flip he always does, and
well, that's what I mean. Claws. I didn't know Bucky had a knife flip.
Yeah, I think that's very much on you. But yeah, so Taskmaster, who turns out to be the daughter of Dreykov, who's like the film's main villain, who's the head of the Red Room, and I would say feels very much like a Harvey Weinstein kind of character. Would you agree that this film feels very much like a post Me Too?
Yeah. One of the things I remember from seeing this 6 months ago, that I really liked in it was when Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson are like sort of roasting David Harbour, and they just casually mention that their like ovaries were cut out. And it's maybe one of the like darkest pieces of dialogue or implications in the MCU, I thought. But I appreciated the film being like, no, this is full on like trafficked. Like, this isn't Disney trafficking. This is real.
This ain't your mama's trafficking.
This is real child soldier trafficking. And I appreciated that. I thought that was a cool way to show how serious it was. And yeah, definitely Me Too, Harvey Weinstein kind of character. So yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. It's what did you think of the film?
So I've got a new rule of thumb with Marvel. And that's whenever I see an MCU film, I'll rate it however I feel, and then 2 weeks later, I'll take it down half a star. Because usually that is how I end up feeling. And this is maybe a really, really good example of that, of a film that when I saw it, I was like, that was great. I'm so glad to be back in Marvel. And then 2 weeks later, I was like, that wasn't that good.
Yeah.
I don't really care about it that much. It feels like it belongs in the corner of the MCU, occupied by like your Captain Americas, and that's probably it. To be honest, I don't think any the other ones fit into that the sort of espionage, secret agent kind of world that the Captain America films occupied.
I would say that the film, while being good, and it's kind of like what you're saying, is that I don't think it was good, but it wasn't good enough to justify its own existence.
Yeah, and a big part of that is when it came out in the chronology, because, and I've been saying this for years, ever since we found out that we were getting a Black Widow prequel, and knowing that she dies in Endgame, I was like, you can't just bring out in my opinion, you can't just bring out a prequel. You've got to justify it narratively.
Yeah.
Why are we being told this information now? And I think the movie would say, we're telling you this information now because Florence Pugh is a new big character. And I guess that kind of does it for me, but at the same time, this would have been so much better if it had come out at the time it's set, like between Civil War and Infinity War.
Because it would have made sense to do like a smaller scale film there as well.
Yeah, it so clearly should have come out there.
But then also, if it had come out in that like sort of 2016, early 2017 thing, that was before the idea of kind of like women being people and having their own agency was really a thing. With like the Me Too movement, obviously being like 2017, so people would have seen this character played by Ray Winstone and been like, not really seeing an allegory.
What did he do
here.
wrong? Sorry, That'd see that and be like, wow, Marvel are finally doing sympathetic villains. So and I think you joke, but I think there obviously is influences in this film that maybe wouldn't have existed in 2017. Like maybe they wouldn't have been thought to do this. And I believe the ultimate reason why it took so long to get a Black Widow solo film, despite her being an OG Avenger, was like Ike Perlmutter being one of the producers at Marvel, who basically blocked anything that wasn't a white man from like being the main character in a Marvel film, because he didn't think they would sell toys or something stupid like that.
Yeah, it definitely it felt like an apology from Feige to Johansson.
And what happened? She fucking sued everyone.
Yeah.
What a mess! What a mess of a production. Like, she was right, but it's still like, what a sad. I mean, it's not that sad. I guess it's just people making money hand over fist still. But what an interesting fallout for, and like all this kind of stuff surrounding this movie, which ostensibly is about as good as Marvel movies have been. Like, it doesn't stand out. It's not a standout Marvel movie, I guess. And so, yeah, I thought that I liked a lot of it. I just it feels frustrating to be watching it here in this time. And I remember going into it being like, how are they, like, because it's weird. You wouldn't think they would just do a single Marvel movie. Everyone's got their own trilogies or whatever, except for Incredible Hulk, for various reasons. And I guess if we do get a Black Widow 2, I guess it'll be a Yelena led one. So I guess you still can do Black Widow 2. Can that be my continue the franchise?
What do you think? Do you remember what this has on Rotten Tomatoes?
86.
79%. So that is one of the lower ones, definitely. Yeah, this again, actually, what we spoke about last week. This has one of the very like cynical kind of looks, but like it is just completely. It's a Marvel thing, like making fun of ourselves, because that's like Yelena's character is like keeps on making fun of Scarlett Johansson's character for being like a poser, superhero landings, shit like that. But then they kind of want to have their cake and eat it too a little bit. That it's like they still want Florence Pugh to look cool and dramatic when she does those things, and that's the way to do them. But then they have her character just point them out, but they still do them. There's also an interesting thing. So this was directed by a woman, Kate Shortland, but I think this film more than any had like really gratuitous shots of Scarlett Johansson's butt.
Really? I don't notice.
So many times when the camera would be framed, like, so it's literally just one side of the screen is her butt, and then the other half of the screen is what she's looking at. It's such a weird thing. Like it's weirdly the most perverse cinematography in a way.
I feel like Avengers was pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are pretty bad, but it's an interesting choice. It certainly is. The fact that it was notable, but it's like at the same time, like, I mean, Scarlett Johansson probably
She probably doesn't have
You
a
know,
problem
it's
with it.
like, yeah, my butt look good. My butt looks good. Like, you know, women can equally want to show off their bodies as much as people want to see it. You know.
Yeah, they're allowed.
Yeah, they're allowed. And all you men out there,
Saying they're not allowed.
you're just as bad as Drakov. This film does have a post-credit scene, but much like we did with when we cover the MCU, we will talk about all the post-credit scenes at the end. No Stan Lee cameo on this one. I guess this is the first one not to have one.
Was he in Endgame?
He is in Endgame. Yeah, he's in when they go to the Shield base in the 60s.
Was he in Far From Home?
Stan Lee cameos. Maybe he wasn't in Far From Home. Actually, you're right.
Wasn't Venom the last thing he cameoed in?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no. So Avengers Endgame was the last one in the MCU that you're right. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about?
No, I think it speaks to it. This movie has is unfortunately the least memorable one, and also the one I saw the most amount of time ago. So that's an unfortunate, coupling of things stacked against it. But I mean, last time we kind of talked about our rankings, I think.
Oh, yes. I'll bring up my MCU ranking.
I can tell you where I ranked it. So this is including most of the TV. I've added TV shows to my MCU ranking.
Oh yeah, I'm not doing that.
I just feel like it's not about them being movies though.
It's about drive. It's about power.
It's about power. It's about hunger. So I've currently got Black Widow at 18th, which is just behind Guardians of the Galaxy and in front of things like Iron Man 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so, I've got it at 19th, so this is out of 27, my one is. And it's just above Captain Marvel, just below Ant-Man.
Now, that's, a middling place for a middling movie.
Mm-hmm. So, next film we had a few months later, and this I didn't see till quite a bit later because I was in fucking lockdown when it came out. But you got to go to the cinema to see it. That is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So yeah, directed by Daniel Cretton. This one had an earlier release on Disney Plus than I think it would have been otherwise due to the pandemic. But it came out on Disney Plus Day. It was like this year Disney Plus did like a big thing. So what is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings about?
So it's about a guy we haven't seen before named Shang-Chi, who was the martial arts expertly trained martial arts guy, and son of the Mandarin, the real Mandarin.
Oh.
And there's 10 rings that the Mandarin wears on his wrist that gives him heaps of power, and him and a bunch of fun side characters travel to find. What are they trying to find?
The Ten Rings.
Are they trying to find the 10? No, they're trying to find a village, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like Shangri-La or something like that?
It's not Shangri-La, but yeah, very similar.
Yeah, and he fights a dragon. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
I'll pull up the
so it's Wenwu the Mandarin wants to open this gate and release this like soul-consuming demon, and then they go to this village to protect it and keep the gate shut.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah. This one, so it stars Simu Liu as Sean or Shang-Chi. You got Awkwafina as his platonic best friend, which is like a fun, change of pace. You got Benedict Wong shows up and he fights Abomination from Incredible Hulk, which is like a fun sort of thing there.
Bringing their forgotten movies canon back into the frame.
Yeah. You got Tony Leung as Wenwu, Sean's father, who is the Mandarin, as you mentioned. But then also a familiar face who once went by the Mandarin. You got Ben Kingsley as Trevor Slattery in what you would expect to be a very brief cameo in the film if to appear at all, but then just shows up and then is in the rest of the film.
And it felt like a creative decision made by me, Richard. It felt like if I was working in the MCU writer's room and I said Trevor Slattery should show up and be in the rest of the film, I would have to fight to make that happen, and yet here it is. So I very much enjoyed the return of Trevor Slattery.
Yeah. We also have a character called Razor Fist who's played... Did you recognize him?
No.
He's played by a guy called Florian Munteanu, who you may remember played Victor Drago in Creed 2.
Oh, nice.
He's the guy that has a machete for his right hand.
That's right. Yes, I remember him. Yep. So this one didn't this get like crazy high critic scores and stuff like that?
Yeah, what would you think it has on Rotten Tomatoes?
97, like something. I read at the time. I remember reading Shang-Chi is now the highest rated comic book movie of all time, or something like that.
It's 91%, so it's gone down since you read that, presumably. But yeah, no, this film, it's very, very solid film, I think, and a lot of people really enjoyed this. The specific praise a lot for Wenwu, the villain. You know, they're having the main villain be the main character's father is like a good choice, and yeah, it's just like it's. I don't know. I don't think it does anything particularly. It's not like, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy or Thor Ragnarok, where you watch it and you're like, you know, this completely. It feels like nothing else in the MCU, and it completely stands out. This is just like a very solid entry, and is hard to fault in any major way. And while, it's just a rollicking good time.
Not to wade into the very different ways you and I rate films on Letterboxd. I saw this with my friends Kate and Josh, and after it finished, I pulled out my phone, logged it on Letterboxd, and logged it 4 stars. And they were like, "Why aren't you giving it 5 stars?" And I was like, "I'm not going to 5 stars. Are you crazy?"
What if someone sees?
I just thought that was a crazy thing. Like, I was like, this is maybe for me anyway. It was like a slightly above the rest Marvel movie. Is not all of them, but like slightly above average Marvel movie to me. And like the idea of rating that 5 stars, I thought was laughable, Richard. and then 2 weeks later, I took it down to 3.5 stars, which most Marvel movies are for me. I think, I don't know. I thought there's some stuff I really liked in it, but I think a Marvel movie's got to really play with the form for me to like be super into it these days. Like the ones you mentioned are great examples of Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor and the Avengers movies often do it. And I don't know. I think there's a really really fucking cool scene towards the start of this movie where you first see his martial arts skills, and it's on like this tram, this bus in San Francisco. And when that was going on, I was like, wow, this is new stuff. I haven't seen anything like a fight scene.
Great choreography,
Yeah, I haven't seen anything like this in the MCU. And then that scene kind of remained the high point of the movie for the rest of it. Like, they don't really they do other great fight scenes, but none of them have like the fun or energy of the bus set piece, I didn't think.
I get that. There's like a scaffolding fight scene that's quite cool. I mean, I gave this 5 stars. I'm very much if I enjoyed a film, you know, I don't like the idea that 5 stars should be unattainable. I've said this many times on the podcast before.
And I do. I cherish the idea of them being unattainable.
Yeah, like is it Pitchfork? I think only gives like one perfect score to like an album once every 10 years.
Right. That's also stupid.
Yeah, it was Kid A in 2001, or 2000, and then My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy in 2010, and then a Fiona Apple album in 2020. And it's like literally once every 10 years they do it, which is stupid. And I hate the idea that, you know,
at broadcasting school didn't give anyone top marks for our first major assignment and said that we're too inexperienced to be able to get top marks. And that created a massive conversation around, you know, like, well, you should be marking us to the ability we're able to reach, not the ability of what, where we'll be in a couple of years' time. And that was
Yeah.
massive.
I hate that shit, and like, because people say, like, no one should be able to get, like, you get tutors that say that, there's no such thing as a perfect score and all this stuff, and it's like, to them they're thinking like, God, I'm just motivating these youngsters, and to me that goes, well, you're never gonna get a good score, so why try? And so I just go, okay, sweet, well, I'm not going to try in your fucking class then.
Yeah, and look, that's not how I treat movies or even the MCU. I have 5-star movies. Do you know what I don't have? I don't have a single 4.5-star movie ranked in my MCU ranking.
Interesting.
they go from 5 to 4, and then every other number from 4 to, I think, 2.5 is represented. But there's no 4.5.
My 4.5s in the MCU are Guardians of the Galaxy, The Avengers, Black Panther, and Spider-Man Homecoming. Although I'd probably give all those 5 stars these days. Yeah, no, I mean, our ratings are arbitrary, aren't they? So, yeah, Shang-Chi, so you think didn't completely shake up the formula?
So this is one of those things where, and it's tiptoey ground, because this got a lot of praise for being like, the first Asian American Marvel superhero and all that stuff. And like, I think it resonated with people who are really into martial arts movies, which I am not really. I don't really like martial arts movies that much. And so I think this is one of those things where it's like, all, 100% all due respect to people who saw themselves in these characters. Like, of course, but for me, that wasn't enough for it to feel like it's particularly better than most of the MCU stuff. Something I've become, I think, probably more cynical about since we recorded the MCU episode. I think when we recorded the MCU episode, I was a lot more wide-eyed and, took every movie as it was. And
well, it's pre-Endgame and post-Endgame, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And now I'm just like, you've really got to do something interesting to impress me. I think people talk about Captain Marvel a lot this way, where it's like, like kind of unimpressive despite being a fun time when you watch it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, Doctor Strange for me was kind of the breaking point where it's like, I mean, I know when we saw it together, you said that it was the future of the MCU and that it was probably the best MCU movie yet.
I didn't say that. I didn't say it was the best one yet. I remember saying something along the lines of it's the future of the MCU, which isn't necessarily a bad take. I think that you could argue that. I never thought it was the best one.
Yeah, it's. I think Doctor Strange.
And then when we watched it, I really didn't like it that much. So.
Yeah, Doctor Strange for me is the turning point where it became too late to still be doing an origin story or like that kind of origin story. Because like Shang-Chi is actually a great example of an origin story. This is like how he became the superhero, but it's not him getting his powers and learning how to use them and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, he does sort of learn to master the rings, but that's like as he sort of obtains them through a fight with his dad. But
also his superpower is just he's really well trained. It's not like he was, had any kind of like super origin.
Yeah, but it is like when we meet Sean and his friend Katie, they're just a couple of broke valets who are dreaming about owning a fancy car, and then the bus fight scene happens where he reveals like, I'm actually real fucking good at martial arts, because they start to pick a fight with him, and Katie Awkwafina's character is like, come on, like fucking, does he look like he can fight? And then he beats the shit out of all of them, and. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I actually, I like how this sort of treats being an origin story.
One thing I like about this movie is that Awkwafina makes 2 separate vagina jokes, and I like to think there was a stipulation in her contract because it's Awkwafina and she loves vagina jokes. Because there's a part on the
Do you remember the
bus,
jokes? Yeah.
There's a part on the bus where she's looking at like some I think she's looking at a woman who's like well dressed and like looks like she's got her shit together, and says something like, "That's the kind of girl my mum wishes she squeezed out her vagina," which is a crazy line for the MCU. And then later on, she makes a joke. I think she decides to change her name as a joke to Gina or something like that. Like I think you mean Gina or something like that. And I remember like both times being like, "There's 2 like." not only are these two separate vagina references, they might be the first two vagina references in the entire series, the entire cinematic universe. Because it just feels like it'd be so like, no, we're Disney, we're Marvel, we can't have that. But like, it's Awkwafina, so that's sorry, you've got to.
Yeah.
literally broke her teeth on writing songs about vaginas. So.
Broke her teeth.
Isn't that the term?
Cut her teeth.
Cut her teeth. She didn't break her teeth.
This is so much more visceral.
She didn't literally break her teeth.
Chomping down on those vagina jokes.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, Trevor Slattery was good fun as well.
Well, I like it because what I don't like is when the MCU or any story abandons stuff, and the MCU has always been surprisingly good at not abandoning things. Like, and the big one was when they returned to the wonderful world of Thor 2 and Avengers Endgame, and it was like, of all the movies you're going back to this one, like the worst Marvel movie, and it's the same with Trevor Slattery, and it's the same with Abomination. Like, all these things I liked seeing because it shows that they are not pretending maybe like certain like controversial decisions or weaker moments in the movies. They're not pretending they didn't happen, which is something you can't say about something like Rise of Skywalker, right? Like it feels like it's a lesson learned from that blockbuster series being ashamed of its past, So and I like that. I think that's cool.
Yeah, because there was, we covered it on a Patreon episode, I think, but the Marvel one-shot All Hail the King, which is canon to this film, really. That Trevor Slattery is in prison for obviously impersonating a terrorist mastermind, and then this guy shows up, played by Scoot McNairy, who an actor I could not pick out of a lineup, despite having seen maybe 15 things he's in, and yeah, he essentially says the Mandarin's real, and he's pissed off that you made fun of him, and then he gets captured, and then we see what had happened to him, that he's been sitting in a prison cell with a little this little like furball with
very Ghibli-esque,
with no face.
Yeah.
And then he shows up and they take him with him, and he continues to, and he helps defend the village. Yeah. And
I think Ben Kingsley is why I loved it. I think if this was a weaker act, like if it was like fucking like Will
Scoot
Ferrell,
McNairy
I'd be like, imagine if Will Ferrell was cast as the Mandarin, and the twist was that Will Ferrell isn't the bad guy, but just a silly, goofy guy. Like, I'm now realizing, of course you have to get like a prestige actor for that role, otherwise the twist doesn't work.
If it was Michael Caine.
Yeah, maybe. That'd be fucking a crazy role for Michael Caine, wouldn't it?
They'll never see me coming, innit?
Yeah. No, good stuff.
Fuck, Scoot McNairy is in so much shit.
He's really good in True Detective Season 3.
Yeah, you've mentioned that. Which I've seen part of.
You've also mentioned that you don't know who Scoot McNairy is before, and I didn't call you out for that, so...
Well... Fuck off.
Wow.
Okay, I'm trying to count it. So I've seen a bit of True Detective that he's in. He's in Fargo. He's in My Name is Earl. He's in How I Met Your Mother.
He's in Batman v Superman.
Yeah, he's in...
I remember what he looks like.
Once Upon a Time in
Hollywood.
He's in Batman v Superman. He's in Gone Girl. He's in Frank. He's in All Hail the King. He's in 12 Years a Slave. He's in Argo. Mm-hmm. He's in Monsters.
Yep, I remember.
He's in Herbie Fully Loaded. So that's, by my count, 13 things I've seen him in, at least. That's insane. This guy's he has no face. He doesn't have a picture on his Wikipedia page.
I disagree. I think he's very notable.
Like, he doesn't even have a picture on his Wikipedia page because they weren't sure if it was him.
They weren't sure if it was him or David Desmalchian.
Do they look alike?
How would you know, Richard?
Well, I think David Desmalchian is like one of the most distinctive looking people on
His
the planet.
star is rising too.
These Scoot McNairy pictures, you could tell me these are different people. I'm scrolling through his pictures on IMDb. Like, these are not the same person. What the fuck is this dude's problem, man? Just look more distinctive. Anyway, maybe that's on me.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely on you. That's what I'm saying.
I disagree. Anyway.
No, you don't disagree. You just said that you maybe thought that.
Yeah, well, I didn't mean it. So, that's Shang-Chi. Next up, we had a film called Eternals, once called The Eternals, but now just called Eternals, directed by Chloe Zhao, who won an Oscar this year for Best Director for Nomadland, which also won Best Picture at the Oscars.
I put Shang-Chi 8th on my MCU.
Oh, yeah, nice. I put it 10th.
One in front of Iron Man 3, the previous appearance of Trevor Slater.
Oh, nice. One is one behind Black Panther and one above a film we're about to talk about, which is Eternals. So, yeah, what is Eternals about? Why don't you, AJ, without looking, list the 10 Eternals?
Grogu.
Yep.
Yogi Bear.
Generally, though, let's do it together, shall we? Do you reckon we can name the 10?
Okay, but I get Druig.
Okay.
Druig.
Ajak.
Cersei.
Thena.
Icarus.
Gilgamesh.
Sprite.
Kingo.
Is it Kingo?
Kingo. Yeah. Well.
That's probably all I can remember.
Festos.
Oh, yep.
And Makari.
Okay, who are they? Makari was the deaf one.
And Festos is
Brian
Tyree Henry. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. There we go. Wasn't too hard.
Yeah.
A lot of people shit on this film.
Yeah, people hate this film, man. Like, so this is the lowest rated film in the MCU. It's the only film which has a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes. Its score is 47.
And I think this is so stupid. I've been waiting for a platform to talk about the Eternals since it came out. Right? Yeah. Here's what I think. Maybe we should go into the plot first, but screw it. Here's what I think. I think this is not being judged alongside the MCU. I think this is being judged alongside Chloe Zhao and Nomadland. Yeah. I think what its low critic score is because everyone was like, well, Marvel's hired like a pretty hotshot director who's just like made this incredibly like personal film. Just won an Oscar, and they gave her the space movie. Oh, and look how fucking drab it is, and look how boring it is, and look how flavorless it is. And you know what? Maybe those things are all true, but so is half of the MCU. Like, so are half of these movies, and they're all fine. I went into Eternals expecting it to be horrible. I genuinely, other than what I've just said, can't tell you what people's problem with it would have been.
Absolutely.
Because this is because what is the audience score for Eternals?
Oh, Eternals rot. Eternals rot. 78.
Right. It is baffling that those scores should be switched. Everything I know about the world, those scores should be switched. And the MCU movie that is serviceable and was directed by a prestige director and that maybe wasn't as flavorful as some people wanted, that should still be 78% of critics like it. Whereas the MCU film that features a very extraordinarily diverse cast, has a gay character who kisses his husband on screen, has a deaf character who isn't deaf for story reasons.
The leader is a woman.
Yeah, like all these things. Yeah. These are the things that create a 47% audience score. Yeah. And it's funny. It's so funny, isn't it? That like that feels like that conversation is being avoided. I'm not trying to say that is why it has a low score. It's just interesting that like a lot of these things in which critics usually make fun of audiences for not being woke enough to enjoy is there's a flip there, because this is the kind of thing I would have thought a lot of audiences would have hated, because audiences are white, straight, racist men, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I say, I know that might be a little crass to say, but like when you look at other movies that feature non-straight white male characters in massive roles, they always take a beating in this sense from these kinds of people. And I'm so baffled by it, because not only did I not think this was bad, I thought this was pretty good. I thought
I
it
really
was
liked
real
it.
good. Yeah, same.
So I mean, I saw this, quite a while after it came out. You and a lot of people and friends overseas and stuff like that had all seen it, and now that we're out of lockdown as well, a lot of my friends in Auckland who are Marvel fans didn't rush out to see this one because of the response. And so, I mean, I did. I thought the soonest opportunity I got, and and it came to work on Monday and said, I thought Eternals was great. Like, it's the thing I say, and people are like, oh, I'm trying to decide whether I should go see Eternals, is like, you will know within the first 30 minutes if you're going to like this film or not, because it very quickly asks you to buy into a lot and asks you to be on board with a lot, and if you're not, it's going to be a fucking slog to get through. But it's just you're introduced to a lot of characters, and you are there's a lot of exposition about who they all are and what they serve, and
all the characters are so distinct and well balanced. I not once felt like it was over bloated for a movie with 10 headlining characters who I've never met before. I feel like I know who all of them are. I feel like they all got the appropriate amount of screen time for how important they were to the plot.
Distinct personalities.
Yeah, man, funny movie. Like when Kingo's like director tagged along, I was like,
it's like a chauffeur,
yeah. I was like, oh, excellent, an MCU character's in this movie finally, because this is the most DC of all the MCU movies.
Yeah, 100%.
And Patrick Willems tweeted like Zack Snyder should have directed this, which I get what he means. And when it started, and I think my Letterboxd review for it was, "This is a DC movie.
Yeah.
This is what DC movies should dream of being."
It's very much like it's the Zack Snyder's Justice League thing of like treating superheroes as gods and like an actual mythology more than anything.
Yeah. And the only vague criticism I will have for it is like, it's wild how many like earth-ending threats are happening at the same time that aren't related to each other. Like it's not like they don't acknowledge it, but like Thanos snapped away half the universe in the middle of, spoilers for Eternals, a celestial waking up to destroy the earth. It's funny. Like those two things happened independent of each other in the same time.
He was. Because the Celestial required a large enough population to be, to be awoken from its cocoon, which is the Earth, and the Thanos delayed that by 5 years by snapping half the population out of existence. But
we haven't really said what it is about.
Yeah, what is it about?
So the Eternals are like thousands of years old, and they basically exist to protect the various planets, and the ones we meet are protecting Earth from the Decepticons. What are they called?
Deviants.
And so that, they all team up when the deviants start showing up again, and along the way you sort of learn that there is actually they've everything they've believed is a lie, and that their boss, who is a celestial, is actually getting them to, what is it? It's like the big celestial put
Arisham.
The deviants into existence to rid populations on planets so that they could plant celestials in them.
It's to maintain the population long enough so that they can feed. Yeah. Right,
but then they became too much of a problem, so now he created the Eternals to take care of that problem. And anyway, it turns out that Earth is about to blow up, and so the most of the Eternals change sides and decides to defeat the Celestials' plan.
And it's interesting, like, so by the end of the film, you're not left with, having to follow 10 characters and remember what sides they're on. Icarus is revealed to be evil.
Which I thought was great. What a great character to do that with. I thought he was the main character going in.
Yeah. And it
turns out he's the bad
evil
guy.
Superman. Haven't seen that before. But yeah, Gemma Chan's Cersei is very much the main character, I think. But yeah, and then so Ajak, who is Salma Hayek's character, dies, and she is the one that knew this the whole time and has been knowingly letting them grow attached to humans and humanity, knowing that they're going to die at some point. And then also an interesting thing that you have in the final fight is that Kingo Kamal Nanjiani's character essentially just goes, I'm not going to take part in this final fight, and he just doesn't show up for the third act.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, no. He literally says like, I'm not, because they say, because like some of the Eternals are like, well, this was actually what we were created for, so it's our duty to allow Earth to perish to create a celestial. Right. And the other half are like, well, no, we love Earth, we have to let it. And he says, I'm not going to pick sides. I'm not going to fight Arishem, and I don't want to fight the other Eternals because you guys are my friends. I'm gonna, I'll meet you guys afterwards. And so he doesn't come with them to the third act, and that's him funny. For the film. Yeah.
I really liked Byron Tyree Henry as, what's his name again? Mephisto. Fastos. And I really liked what's his name? Barry Keoghan. Barry Cohen. Cohen as Druig. I thought he was great. And yeah, I like Gemma Chan as well. I thought this was really good, and I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed because I was like, this. I'm actually going to change my MCU ranking because I put it at 15th. I think I'm going to put it high. I feel like I need to bring Shang-Chi down, and I need to move Eternals up. I liked Eternals more than Shang-Chi.
I put them next to each other, but I should put Shang-Chi higher. But I maybe agree. But I also don't care. I don't value my ranking enough. These are all everything in the MCU is 5 stars in my opinion.
So yeah, I don't know. I thought this was really good, and was so baffled by the reception. But yeah.
It is a lot. I will absolutely, give that's not for everyone. But like you said, you would think that would be, for the critics would favor that.
Yeah, it feels like it's a smart movie. It feels like it's prestigious, and it feels like little kids won't like it because it's too mature. First sex scene in the MCU. There you go.
Yeah. And this is like...
what a sex scene!
But you know how we get... every few years, a Disney property will have its first gay character.
Yeah.
And this one actually has them properly kiss on screen.
Yeah, and it's easily their best first gay character they've ever done.
Yeah, this is the first gay superhero we've had.
Right, yeah.
Not played by a gay actor, but, we're getting there. I don't think he's gay. Well, let's double check that.
Yeah, is he? I wouldn't have thought, because I'm so familiar with him in like hyper straight roles, like Paperboy in Atlanta.
Yeah, well, who knows? It's not on his Wikipedia page.
A question for it, and I'm not trying to answer this. I'm positing the question. Do gay characters need to be played by gay actors? Because I totally understand why, like, a trans character should be played by a trans actor, but I don't know if the same thing applies to gay actors.
What's the difference?
I think because being trans is something that is a lot more like outwardly expressed, and so the if you're a trans actor, then you are missing out on roles, whereas like a lot of gay actors play a lot of straight characters.
Yeah, I think that is like isn't that the question of the day, to quote the trailer for Amazing Spider-Man 2. But I think the thing is that, like, as long as we're getting enough gay actors playing straight characters, then it's okay. or
Right.
somewhat okay. I mean, there's always going to there's always going to be an argument that it's not okay, and that
And maybe that argument is correct. I'm
yeah,
I'm
and
not I'm not arguing. I'm positing. You know what I mean?
yeah, but like because with transgender people, it's very clearly they're not getting the roles, and
Yeah,
so when there's a
exactly.
trans character, it's like, well, okay, there's like 3 roles a year you're saying I'm allowed to play, and you give one of them to someone who hasn't
Give one of them to
lived these
Jared
experiences.
Leto.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
and so yeah, whereas like I think obviously you have such like high profile like Neil Patrick Harris as Barney Stinson, I think is actually like quite a big like push forward for that. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
no,
yeah.
you can play these hyper masculine, hyper straight characters as a gay man, and so I think that as problematic of a character as that is, that actually kind of did quite a bit for the movement.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, though, is there anything else you want to say about this? This one obviously has 2 very noteworthy post-credit scenes, but we will get to those in due course.
The different breeds of post-credit scenes. The woefully unimportant ones and the intensely important ones.
And this one has 2 intensely important ones.
Yeah, let's
Bill Skarsgård's in this film as well.
There you go. He was
himself.
He was the
deviant that sort of gains the power of speech.
Exciting stuff. Good movie. Would love to see a second one. Would love to see Eternals too.
Eternals.
The cartoon, the animated series.
But tune is spelled Tune.
Very confusing. It's like a pun lost within a pun.
Story of my life. All
and
right.
now a movie I saw recently enough to actually talk about it comfortably.
A movie I've seen twice already, despite having only come out a few days ago.
I thought about seeing it twice, and I would like to see it again, but I don't think I will at the cinemas. I don't think I'll get to it again.
All right. It's the one you've all been fucking waiting for, you impatient little fucks. That's right. It's Spider-Man No Way Home, and I imagine this will probably be the one that we have the most to say about. So we've probably got more than half an hour, I would say, at least, to continue talking about. As AJ sits there sweating.
I want to go home. I mean, I am home, but I want to get out of my room.
Well, there's no way home, AJ.
Wow. Spider-Man, I'm already home. Wow.
Yeah, so this film, obviously, there's been almost like in-game levels of hype for this film, and same sort of level of secrecy around it, and so it's been very. It's the kind of film you want to avoid spoilers for. If you haven't seen it, get out now. Unless you don't care about spoilers,
and don't go on YouTube because you'll just see them,
or Twitter, or TikTok.
Thumbnails.
Yeah, people just play. I've seen so many clips of this film on TikTok again that I'm so glad I kept off social media.
Yeah. I managed to get to the not the midnight premiere, but the 10 past midnight screening. Nice. Which I'd recommend doing that because tickets don't sell out as fast, and it means you can kind of just stroll in while everyone's lined up for the midnight one. So it was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, this was seeing this opening night with like a crowd who was really into it was just such a magnetic, beautiful experience, and that was the whole reason I went again, because I just wanted to see it with a crowd again. The second time I saw it, the crowd was very subdued. So
the 12:10 crowd, I can't imagine was as rowdy as the 12:01 crowd.
You still had quite a impressive crowd reaction at certain points, didn't you?
Yeah. So there were certain points which you can tell were tailor-made for a crowd reaction that didn't get one, but then there is a certain
let's talk about what the film was about. Let's talk about what the film was about and go into full spoilers for this one, and then tell me what those moments were. So, what is Spider-Man No Way Home about? Your last chance to get out if you're concerned about spoilers. This is a complete 100% spoiler including
Every spoiler.
every single spoiler. The film opens.
Ah, wait, I hadn't turned off the podcast yet. Yep, so coming out of the events of Spider-Man Far From Home, where his identity is revealed to everyone as Peter Parker, he finds that it's fucked up his life and people are harassing him and his friends in the streets. And then worst of all, they can't get into MIT, the University of their dreams, because they are Spider-Man or their association with Spider-Man. And so Peter Parker goes to Doctor Strange and says, can we go back in time and stop this from happening? Doctor Strange says no, but I can make everyone forget. While they're constructing the spell, Peter freaks out because he doesn't want everyone to forget, and this ends up fucking up the spell, and Doctor Strange gets real mad at him because he finds out that he didn't just ask MIT to reconsider before trying.
The most relatable part of the film, that the entire plot happens because Peter didn't want to make a phone call. Or didn't think to make a phone call.
But what ends up happening is that dimensional rifts are coming through, and this, as I understood it, the rift is predicated off knowing Spider-Man as Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's not just... That's why the people that come through the rifts are villains from previous iterations of Spider-Man and not just anybody. Because that was my big question going in, was like, how does interdimensional multiversal travel know to specify which characters go through? And it's because of the information, the like multiversal piece of information that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, I guess. And so you've got a bunch of characters from Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, and The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. They come through, a bunch of villains, and Peter and the gang.
Who do we have? Okay,
we've got Alfred Molina's Doc Ock. We've got Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. We've got Thomas Hayden Church, who's maybe in it, as Sandman. We've got, again, Rhys Ifans, who's maybe in it as the Lizard. And we've also got Jamie Foxx as Electro.
The Sinister Five.
Yeah, interesting. And
there are six in the film, but we'll get to that.
There are there?
Well, there's a post-credit scene. Six villains showed up, but one just got drunk in Mexico instead of coming to the fight.
Okay, interesting. So, and you know, a bunch of shit goes down, which eventually results. So, okay, no, Peter's like, I don't want to kill these guys because their multiversal fate is to be killed by Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And Peter's like, no, I don't want to do that. So he battles Doctor Strange and locks him in an alternate dimension,
the mirror dimension,
and then decides to try and cure all of these villains.
Yeah.
And so they have this thing where they try and cure all these villains, but Green Goblin is incurable, ends up breaking out.
He essentially acts as if he's already been cured, and then turns out it's a real primal fear situation where it turns out that he actually was evil.
So he breaks everyone free, ends up killing Aunt May after she tells Peter, with great power comes great responsibility. And before Peter can go total ham and kill Green Goblin,
before he goes sicko
mode, fucking the other Spider-Men show up. Surprise!
By the other Spider-Men, who do you mean?
Coming. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield show up.
Yeah.
And they all team up to essentially attract all the villains to the Statue of Liberty, the same place where they can systematically cure them. And then, but they succeed, but then the dimensions are cracking, and so Tom Holland, Peter Parker, is like, tell you what, Doctor Strange, make everyone in the multiverse forget that I'm Spider-Man. And so he sacrifices...
forget that he ever existed.
Yeah. So he sacrifices all of that. So people remember Spider-Man exists, but they don't remember that it's Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And
they don't remember that Peter Parker ever existed.
Yeah. So and then he's alone at the end of the movie. Spider-Man.
He's just a poor college student who made his own suit.
But at what cost?
Yeah.
But at what cost? You know?
Yeah.
He's a poor college student, but at what cost?
Yeah. Well, rent's due the first of every month. Don't be late. That is made explicitly clear in the film, but we don't know how much that rent is. There is also just as part of the first act of the film, Peter needs to find a lawyer as well, and he finds one, and it's Matt Murdock, played by Charlie Cox, who's Daredevil from the Netflix Daredevil TV show, which is kind of bringing that into the MCU, which would be like kind of the first instance of that, but then like on the same night almost, they explicitly brought it into another property, which we'll talk about in 2 weeks. But yeah, so it's a very fan servicey film. It has a lot of payoffs. It's a celebration of a lot of things, and like in the same way that Endgame is a celebration of the entire MCU, this is a celebration of every Spider-Man film preceding it.
Yeah, it's a celebration of Spider-Man in film, which is very different from an MCU film.
Yeah.
Like this, I'm not going to say it doesn't feel like an MCU film because it has Doctor Strange in it, and it does feel like an MCU film. But it feels like it's got a completely different mission statement from
an assignment that it understood.
Yeah, of course. From most other MCU films. The first review that I saw of this was before I saw it. I saw an AV Club review that referred to it as Spider-Man Greatest Hits, which was a pretty good title if they didn't stick with this home motif thing.
Yeah, it's the critical response has been pretty good, 94%.
Yeah. So, and that surprised me as well. So, I went into this movie being like, and we talked about this on the Venom film franchise follow-ups last month. I basically went into this being like, how on earth is this going to be good? Because, we didn't know that Peter Parker's would show up, or Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, but we did know. And it was just sort of like, how on earth is this going to be good? It feels like it's such a mash of things together. It feels, and cynically, I'm like, this isn't filmmaking. This is
theme park ride.
Yeah, well, and like legit, I don't agree with not calling it cinema or saying it's not cinema. I think that's redundant and ridiculous and factually incorrect as well. But like, yeah, I didn't think I was going to be won over enough by nostalgia to be able to see past the flaws of it being a pretty shitty design for a movie. Something, because like we also already had this with Into the Spider-Verse, which was excellent, but Into the Spider-Verse didn't bring in like metatextual elements of like, it's an actor who previously played Spider-Man. There was nothing like that in it. And going into it, I was like, the thing is, you could do Spider-Man No Way Home with just actors, anyone playing Spider-Man, bring in anyone who hadn't played him before, and it still achieves the same result in the text of the film, that it's Spider-Man from another dimension. But they didn't do that, and I guess I was cynical about it. And going to see it, when it finished, this cynicism hung over me. And while I loved seeing everyone again, I couldn't tell what I felt about it, really. I was like, I feel hijacked into liking this. I feel like with Endgame, I feel like, I know Endgame for true film snobs is probably a lot worse looked upon than I look upon it, but like I see Endgame as like a culminative success. It's a result of a filmmaking experiment, which I think is valid. Whereas this felt cash grabby and nostalgia it felt like nostalgia terrorism. and I wasn't sure. And then I watched it and I was like, I don't feel like I hated it, and I liked seeing it. And I'll let you say that your point, because I said in the Discord that like, I don't feel the same hype I felt from Endgame watching this.
It's not the same resonance.
Yeah, I don't feel... Yeah, exactly. And I don't feel as fulfilled in the same way that Endgame fulfilled me. And what did you say, Richard?
Well,
I
said that Spider-Man No Way Home is like the hottest, nastiest, filthiest sex you've ever had with like a porn star, where it's like... It's probably the best you've ever gotten off in your life, but Endgame is like making love to your soulmate. It's like when you jerk off in the future, you're going to think about No Way Home, but you're going to lie awake at night
next to Endgame,
crying you can't have another Endgame. Right.
Okay, right. So in this analogy, Endgame has broken up with me. Okay. I thought you were saying like I lie in bed next to Endgame, feeling emotionally
thinking about No Way Home,
but sexually broken.
Yeah.
And fuck, man, what a great way to put it. I 100% agree, and that actually gave me the like mental keys to access my feelings for it. And what another way, like a less crude way of putting it, is like, yeah, it has all these cheap tricks in it to make you like a movie, but these cheap tricks are in a movie that's still a pretty good story.
Well, that's the thing. It's like it's the jump scare of it's like the reverse of a jump scare, where it's like it's the thing where it's like you immediately feel the thing. Whereas Endgame is actually, it's like it's the difference between that and actually building atmosphere and all these things that it's like No Way Home will immediately make you be like, that's the guy. Fuck yeah, that moment. Fuck yeah. But then Endgame is a lot more like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is happening.
Yeah. Although I can't believe No Way Home.
I can't believe it. It's insane.
I would like to talk about some stuff I don't like about the movie so that maybe we can end on stuff that we can both just enjoy together. So number one, and this is something I saw early, like when rumors of casting were happening like early last year. I feel like the natural sequel to Far From Home is the first 20 minutes of this movie, and it feels weird that this feels like it should have been movie 3 and movie 4. I think there's a whole movie's worth in Everyone Knows Peter Parker's Spider-Man and a whole movie's worth in I'm Bringing Everyone In From Other Dimensions. And I think they wanted to do both and they couldn't decide, and they felt like they were straddled with the ending of Far From Home, and so it feels almost kind of swept under the rug. And I think people aren't being too critical of it because it brings in Daredevil, and so people are excited about that.
Yeah, but it is also like because there's the One More Day like famous storyline in Spider-Man history that's like garbage and was done to solve the issue of everyone now knowing that he's Spider-Man after he announces his identity in Civil War. And so it very much feels like, but instead of Mephisto, it's Doctor Strange. And so it very much feels like that's baked into the source material, that it's like this is your in point to the thing. I did see a funny a review that you just reminded me of though, before I saw the movie, that complained that the first act serves more to set up the rest of the film than anything else, which is the purpose of a first act.
Right, and also the opposite of what I think is truth about it. And it's not even like there's a point where the movie stops being about this one thing. I did think it's weird to build up like how hype it is that Peter Parker's might be in legal trouble, and then to immediately be like, no, I've solved it. Like, you don't see Daredevil solve it. He just says he solved it. And that's what I'm saying. It feels like there's a whole movie that you could do in there. And like there are bits and pieces of these two different movies that are scattered throughout it, with something like the entirety of the J. Jonah Jameson storyline. It's like that's from that first movie. That's from the Daredevil, the one with Daredevil in it, and they've merged them together. And I was waiting for Tobey Maguire to see J. Jonah Jameson and be like, oh, he looks like that in my universe as well. Feels strange that they didn't do that. So I didn't really like that kind of the feeling that they didn't like the idea they were canonically forced to start with and then abandon it for a more exciting idea. The other thing that I think the idea... So I've conflicted on this, right? I think it's very unfilmic and bad, kind of not bad or lazy, but like takes the romance out of storytelling to just be like, we need to cure the villains. You do that in any movie. You try to cure the villains. Now, I'm stopped in my tracks by remembering that in both Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2, the villains literally are like possessed ostensibly. So it is a case of curing them. But it felt almost like too meticulous of a solution to be like, we are going to cure the villains. Like, I don't know, like the idea that like evil is a disease and not something that, you know, like the way to cure Electro, as an example, should be to talk to him and help him understand and change his perspective over the course of days and weeks and months, not, you know, put a thing on him and it turns him good again. And so I thought they spent a lot of time on what I thought was a very strange plot idea of curing villainy. And I also finally, I think Aunt May dying is sadder than the movie realizes it is, and it realizes it's sad, but
Yeah.
I think it's sadder than what the movie allows you to feel.
It is funny because I thought this while watching it again yesterday. Like Aunt May dies, the emotional low point of the film. The next scene, you're expected to be cheering because Andrew Garfield shows up and Tobey Maguire shows up.
Shit like that, yeah. So I thought, first of all, vague, problematic stuff with how many women must die for Spider-Man to learn that great power, right? But also, it's just like there is in a more mature movie, the fact that Peter made a arguably selfish decision and went to such extremes of casting a spell to get into college, and that resulted in the death of his caregiver. In a more mature movie, that would have so much, that'd be pinpointed, and that would be like the entire tragedy of his, like, the stupid decision you made resulted in her death. The movie kind of treats it more as like, she died, so now I need revenge, and not she died and it's absolutely my fault. And the movie ends and he visits her grave, and then he's like, I'm Spider-Man again and no one knows, and my life's starting again. But it's like, it's so fucking sad to me that she died, because, like, imagine if you, like, made a phone call to try and change, say you got a strange anomaly in your bank statement, so you called up the bank to try fix it, and because of the butterfly effect and because of that call, your mum died. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a small, kind of small thing he did that resulted in her death, and I feel like that is so tragic, and the movie doesn't allow you to feel that, and maybe she just shouldn't have died, I think. Oh, and also, the box that they have at all times that can send all the villains back to their dimensions if they press a button. What? That's so weird to put that in the movie, to put, like, the solution to all your problems in the movie. I think the box should have been destroyed, and that should have been the conflict.
Right, yeah.
As the box has been destroyed. So when, after
we need another way to send them back.
We need another way to send them back, or we need to get Doctor Strange back, etc., etc. It feels weird that Aunt May gets killed by Green Goblin because other characters have a box that could have sent Green Goblin back before they killed her. It's like a solution. They give the characters a solution to their problem. Yeah, so those are the things. Those are my issues.
Anyway, enough of that. Fuck, what a good movie though, eh? Oh man, fucking riot. So, what were the moments that got cheers and didn't get cheers for you?
So, Daredevil showing up, my friend Josh next to me grabbed my leg and went, oh. And I don't really care about Daredevil, haven't seen it, so it doesn't
but there was a few like, I think there's a bit of a clap in my center.
But then it's complete silence until Andrew Garfield takes his mask off after coming out of the portal.
So good. My God.
And then the theater went, like, I literally heard someone in the theater go, like, oh God, like a relief.
Yeah.
Like, thank God he's actually in it.
Yeah.
Thank God. And then the other one was when Tobey Maguire shows up a couple minutes later, everyone was clapping and cheering, and then I heard someone go, pizza time.
And then did you guys have a big cheer as well when Andrew Garfield saves MJ as well?
I can't remember.
I do want to talk about
that scene though.
But you mentioned that there was some that felt like they were designed for cheers but didn't.
I can't remember.
Right.
I can't remember. I just remember, like, feeling like this would have been a cheer in a more hype cinema.
So when Ned opens the portal, because Ned can open portals in this film, and they see, like, oh, that must be him. Oh, it has to be him, right? And you see a Spider-Man, you can hear, like, the murmurs. They'll be like, oh, like, this is...
Well, you can tell that it's not...
Yeah, he's, like, very, very far in the distance, like, to begin with. And you see everyone realize what's about to happen. And you go, oh. And then he runs up, jumps into the screen. It's clearly not his suit. It's the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit. What a great suit, by the way. But he... and then... he rips his mask off and the crowd went fucking nuts. And it was like actually just this like such a beautiful atmosphere and like people are cheering and stuff. And it's like the film pauses for applause. Like which and then Tobey Maguire shows up and it's a similar like it takes it's his face is revealed
in the
last.
shadows. Yeah.
And it's like and all these things are done like this. And then you hop on Twitter and people go, oh, fucking Marvel audiences. Like, the worst part of any Marvel movie is the audience. And I could not disagree more. I've
seen ones that have overdone it.
Oh, no, 100%, yeah. I've seen clips, like, where people are actually just going, woo! And it's like, at a certain point, maintaining that woo, you're just maintaining it. You're no longer expressing emotion. And it's like, yeah, it's a cool moment, but shut up. So, I mean, obviously people had different experiences at different cinemas, but like to me, that's why you go see a film like this on opening night is for those reactions. And I remember after Endgame thinking like, I can't imagine ever having an experience that good in a cinema again. And I mean, I kind of had it with this, and then I tried to chase that high again, going again, and it was no one. I think there was one clap at one point throughout the film, but it was the like, oh my god, that's gonna be Andrew, you know, and like you can hear people realize what's about to happen, and I love that atmosphere so much. And so to all the people, like all these people that are complaining about like the Marvel audiences, I'm just like, God, I would hate to be that joyless. That I can't enjoy that. And like again, maybe your cinema like completely cheered throughout the entire scene, but the movie like pauses for you to have that moment of realization. Even if it's not applause, it's to drink it in. And so yeah, I
drink in this thing we all pretended we didn't know was definitely going to happen.
Yeah, which is kind of one of my other. It's not really an issue with the film. It's an issue with society. But so there was nothing in this film that I wasn't expecting.
Sure.
And like of the Multiverse of Madness trailer, kind of. But I did hop onto a Discord to see what other people thought of the film while waiting for the post-credit scene to come up, forgetting I hadn't seen the post-credit scene. And they said, "Oh yeah, the Doctor Strange trailer," and I was like, "Oh fuck, okay, yeah." But I mean, it didn't spoil what was in the trailer or anything like that. So
it was cool to see a trailer for the first time in cinemas.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll talk about the post-credit. Yeah, but like, and I see this with Endgame as well. But it's like I hate that leaks have now become like fair game. So it's one thing to talk about, like Sony decided to put all 5 main villains in the trailer. And it's like, this is them saying, this won't spoil the experience for you. I do wish that maybe they hadn't put the Statue of Liberty fight in it. That it's like, I always like when there's one set piece held for, you know, for the actual movie. But yeah, like with all the leaks of Tom Holland and Andrew Garfield, it's like, so Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. We always knew Tom Holland was going to be in it. But with Maguire and Garfield, that people were just like so openly talking about and just sharing these pictures of and of Matt Murdock as well. Did you get
spoiled?
What do you mean? Like
were you definitively spoiled that they were in the movie?
Well, like nothing 100% reliable. I was shown things that could easily be Photoshop mock-ups. You know,
there's a shot of Andrew Garfield like with his arm over some pipes that was dispelled as a Photoshop, and that shot's in the movie, and I was like, damn. I did not. I thought there was a Photoshop.
There's also a shot of the 3 Spider-Men, like all looking to the right side of the screen that's in the film and that was leaked. But it's like, again, that could have been a Photoshop mock-up. It was like, it was that sense of, it's like, I know these guys are going to be in the film with 99.9% confidence. And then for them to actually show up was like, yes. Yeah. And God, Andrew Garfield must be so relieved now that he can actually talk about his upcoming potential like Academy Award nomination without people being like, what about this Spider-Man?
Mr. Sunday Movies put out a video a few weeks back about like all the evidence to suggest Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in it, and it was called, the title of the video was Andrew Garfield is a Liar. So okay, I feel strange about
Doctor Strange.
the depictions that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in terms of the actual meat of their performance, something that couldn't have been spoiled and was easily the highlight of having these characters in it, because seeing Tobey Maguire again, a man who has barely been in anything since Spider-Man, it was intoxicating to see him again and to see him be Peter Parker. One thing that wasn't a problem that I anticipated being a problem was the fact that the Raimi Spider-Man movies are so tonally different and like real, like the rubber band of reality is a lot more cartoony. That never even crossed my mind watching it. So well done to John Watts, I guess, for creating a consistent tone for the character. So it was great to see Tobey Maguire again, and like I'm in love with that character, and like seeing him be Spider-Man, and bit
so dorkily earnest as well.
Yeah, where he talks about MJ and that they're making it work, and that's kind of this little like closure that we maybe needed. But I gotta say, Andrew Garfield is like now after this movie one of the best actors I think has been in the MCU, or at least one of the best performances, because and for all the trash that his movies get, deservedly so, to be honest. The scene where Zendaya MJ falls off the Statue of Liberty and Tom Holland, Peter Parker, goes to save her. He gets attacked by Green Goblin and can't. And then Andrew Garfield swoops down and catches her. And he's like, "Are you all right?" And she's like, "Yeah." And looks up at him and goes, Are you all right?" And the look on his face, he doesn't say anything. He shows this is acting. This is acting, right? He shows with his performance that he's found closure or redemption for letting not being able to catch Gwen in time, and it's this fucking heartbreaking piece of acting. And I was like, the highlight of the film was his reaction to being asked if he's okay after catching her. So I really loved that. There's a scene earlier than that, before the villains show up, where they're on the Statue of Liberty and they basically like have a discussion about what it's like being Spider-Man in these various universes. And that was again, that's like, this is what you do when you get all these actors on screen together. And it was a fun conversation. I like that Tobey Maguire describes Venom. When he's like, I put an alien, was a black sludgy alien. And then Andrew Garfield's like, "Yeah, guys put aliens." It's so funny because it's like, if you think about it, like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man crossing to this dimension is easily the most fantastical thing that will have happened to him in his entire life, because those movies were not very like sci-fi magical kind of thing, whereas these ones are, and so like all of the stuff is so balanced so well, and like there's implications that you don't think about, and that's how they get away with them. I like that they brought up the web shooters being organic.
They had to,
and it's weird. It is weird to. I said this when I first saw it. This is what I said to the people I saw it with. I was like, it is bizarre to see fiction bend itself around real stuff that happened that meant that these things, like I wouldn't say it's an incidental decision, but the decision that could have easily been something else of making Peter Parker and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man have organic web shooters 20 years later needs to be explained in the context of why other altered, these things that are production decisions now have fictional reasons for them. And as I was describing this, I was like, oh wait, this happens all the time. This happens when actors don't return for movies. So I guess it's not that crazy, but it's still interesting, I guess, to see the whole world get on board with a dense metatextual idea that every actor who has played a character exists in a larger multiverse and isn't just like completely separated because they're different movies. So of course they're different.
Yeah. I mean, fuck. I'm just what a hype movie. Like the scene of them talking, just like shooting the shit while they're waiting. It felt like this is. A lot of people are going to complain about this scene. That's how I felt. But I was like, "Fucking!"
I felt that's the entire point.
Yeah,
it's the entire point of bringing them in.
Yeah, them just like cracking jokes. But yeah, Andrew Garfield's so good. Like his first scene when he, jumps on the ceiling, and it's like, and then when they
looks so happy to be there,
learn to work as a team, and and they've got their hands on each other's shoulders, and Andrew Garfield goes, "Hey, I love you guys," and it's so good, and it's like they actually. they are playing the same character essentially, but they are playing these slightly different versions of it. And there are things like I said, like Tobey Maguire is kept like really earnest and then
nerdy.
Nerdy, and then Andrew Garfield is just like having so much fun. And it's like, damn, like he's so good when he's in a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing though, towards the end of the battle, that I was like, why did they do this? Was there's a very, very good moment where Tom Holland nearly kills Green Goblin with his own glider as revenge, and Tobey Maguire jumps in the way of it and holds it there and stares him in the eyes. It's a very Tobey Maguire moment.
It is very Tobey Maguire,
yeah. It's really, really powerful, and then he gets stabbed by Green Goblin from behind, and you're like, oh my god, they're gonna kill him.
Yeah.
and he's like lying on the ground. Andrew Garfield tends to him, and then he's fine. And
he's just like, I've been
happens.
stabbed hundreds of times.
Yeah. And I remember, I don't get why they stabbed him. What was the point? I'm glad they didn't kill him. I don't want them to kill him, but it felt like a completely empty, dramatic moment that you should reserve for a character death.
Yeah.
That's just used to drum up tension for very briefly in a time where there's already plenty of tension happening, you know? So I don't know. I just thought it wasn't...
Great movie. I put this
needed.
third on my MCU ranking.
Really? What's it behind?
Avengers Endgame and Infinity War.
I've put it 6th, which is behind Infinity War, Iron Man, Black Panther, Avengers, and Endgame.
Nice.
And I've become a lot more comfortable with that placing as time has gone on.
All right. Well, so just briefly, post-credit scenes. So Black Widow had... where are we? So... So we've got... it's after. So now Flash 2 when Romanoff has died, and then Valentina Allegra de Fontaine shows up, who played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who showed up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which she was actually supposed to first appear in this, and then
which blows my mind because it does not work. I don't think it would work that way.
Yeah,
I think it works much better with her showing up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes, and also apparently, so because Multiverse of Madness was originally supposed to come out before No Way Home, so they had to be rewritten slightly, apparently.
No shit.
But yeah, so she shows up, says like, "Hey, Florence Pugh, this is the person that killed your sister," and she goes, "Ugh. Find out what happens on Hawkeye, Disney Plus. Subscribe now." And who am I? You'll have to watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier now on Disney Plus to find out. I hated this. Worst post-credit scene in the MCU to date for me.
Wow.
It was
worse than fine. I'll do it myself.
Worse, yeah. This was the most I've ever felt the cash grabby kind of, just wanting you to subscribe to Disney Plus, and I just was not into that. Miss me with that shit, as the kids say. So then, what was it? Shang-Chi. We had so the first one, or what did you have anything you want to say about the Black Widow one?
Nah, I didn't really care about it.
Yeah. So mid-credit scene for Shang-Chi, Wong shows up and gets introduced as Shang-Chi and Katie to Bruce Banner, who's now in human form but still has his arm in a cast, and Carol Danvers.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which, while researching the origin of the Ten Rings, and says that they're a beacon to something. Ooh, what's going to happen? But interestingly, because of this post-credit scene, Destin Daniel Cretton is able to keep up his streak of working with Brie Larson.
Oh, wow.
And then in the post-credit scene, Xialing is now the leader of the Ten Rings, and we see that she is now that's Shang-Chi's sister, sorry, and. She said she was going to disband the organization, but she's now keeping. These are all right post-credit scenes. The one with Bruce Banner and Carol Danvers feels a lot more, Ooh.
Well, they both interestingly enough feel like they are hinting toward Shang-Chi 2 and nothing else in the MCU, which is rare. Usually it's for a future movie in the MCU.
Yeah.
This feels like it's specifically contained. Both feel specifically contained to Shang-Chi. Maybe the one with Carol Danvers and Bruce Banner isn't, but it's still, if they're talking about
that's as much like he's part of the Avengers now kind of thing.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So Eternals, we've got two credit scenes. The mid-credits one is Athena, Makari, and Druig are visited by a new Eternal, Eros, aka Star Fox, who is Thanos' brother, played by Harry Styles, and his assistant Pip the Troll, a very poorly rendered CGI character voiced by Patton Oswalt. And it's just, he gives this long intro explaining who he is. And then, he says, I need your help or some shit.
Why is this dude Thanos' brother? What a strange thing to...
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't look... He's not even the same species as Thanos.
Yeah. Harry Styles, cool that he shows up. I like Harry Styles. I think he's probably one of the best male role models we have at the moment.
Well, interesting. Okay.
And Pip the Troll looks like fucking garbage. I hope they fix him for the second one. Cool to hear Patton as well, but yeah. Then in the post-credit scene, we have Dane Whitman, who is the character, the Black Knight, who's talked about in the movie, played by Kit Harington, talks about, I've got my family history is a bit weird. And he opens up this old chest inherited from his ancestors that contains the ebony blade, which is the Black Knight's weapon, and then a voice off screen says, do you think you're ready for that, Dane Whitman? And that voice is an uncredited Mahershala Ali, who has been announced to play Blade in an
I thought that was pretty interesting, because I didn't know it was Blade until like a week later.
Yeah.
and I was just like, I don't know who that is. But yeah, it's funny, like, I knew he was the Black Knight going into Eternals, and it's like, is there a way that, like, there's almost like a subcategory of spoiler with, especially with the MCU stuff, where it's like, if anyone knows character names from the comics, they know that these characters end up being, or might end up being, like, because, like, isn't Ned Leeds, like, become a villain in Spider-Man? Becomes Hobgoblin or something like that?
Talking about becoming Hobgoblin.
I don't think he will. But
yeah, people are still real convinced that he's going to be.
But is there like casting things like going back to the Black Widow one? Like, I didn't know Florence Pugh was going to be in Hawkeye, and so when she's just showed up in the last couple episodes, it's been like, well,
I've heard that.
Well, sorry. Well, I mean, it's just been a situation of like, okay, well, this would have potentially been a surprise if I didn't know this.
Yeah, well, again, that's like the thing that it's like leaks and all these things just become so pervasive that it's like hard to.
But it's different from leaks. It's being familiar with the source material and using that to ruin. I'm not exactly having it ruined for me knowing that Kit Harington is going to be in a future movie as a new superhero, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then, so what did you think of those ones?
They were fine. None of these are blowing my mind so far, though. The most exciting thing is Blade's voice, which I didn't even realize.
Yeah. Then Spider-Man No Way Home has two. Again, we have one which shows where the sixth member of the Sinister Six was, which is Eddie Brock, played by Tom Hardy, aka Venom, just getting drunk in a bar in Mexico with Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso. And then they return, like, so the Venom 2 has a post-credit scene where they get transported to the MCU, and I described as being like very much like Amy Pascal being like, oh, Kevin Feige, what I was thinking, like, what if, to Kevin Feige, like, what if at the end of Venom 2, Venom goes to the MCU, and then Kevin's like, yeah, and then what if he immediately leaves?
What if, like, I stab you and you die? Yeah, but then I have invincibility armor on and I don't die. Yeah, it feels very much. I said this on the film franchise follow-ups for Venom 2 that, like, it feels like for years now Sony has been the little brother that has been wanting to play with the big brother who's Marvel, and now Mum has said that you have to take him. You have to take him to the sleepover. And so I was expecting a lot of stuff to, like, kind of like dip in quality because of having to associate itself. But what's so funny about this is that by flashing him away back to the Sonyverse, but a bit of symbiote stays behind, benefits the MCU more than it doesn't benefit the Sonyverse at all. It gives the MCU a way to introduce the symbiote in a kind of interesting way. And it's just like, it's like, fuck, like, what a crazy decision that is. Like,
Yeah.
what a funny, like, could foresee it as, like, this issue that now, like, Venom's gonna technically be in the MCU. And I mean, he still traveled there, so I guess that line of argument still stands. But, like, it's... Yeah, it's such a funny... I did not expect it to actually work in Marvel's favor more than Sony's.
Yeah. And then the second post-credit scene we get, or the post-credit scene we get, is just a trailer for Multiverse of Madness, which was, cool to see a trailer for the first time on the big screen. Looks quite good. I like the dark sort of thing. Some of it's
forgot it was Sam Raimi until 2 days later.
Yeah. But the most kind of interestingly is that it's like the greatest threat, Doctor Strange, to the world is you. And we see Supreme Strange or Strange Supreme or whatever they called him from What If now in live action. So What If is canon as well.
I mean, it always sort of was. But yeah, okay. So I liked it as well. I don't think the trailer blew me away, but it was cool to see. Especially like I said this to the people I went in the movies with, like, is Chiwetel Ejiofor, like, has he played the longest game of we'll bring you back in the MCU, because he is established as he's going to be the next villain at the end of Doctor Strange, a movie that came out
6
in
years
2016,
before,
so long ago compared to the MCU. You know how quickly they usually push out sequels, and like has not been on screen, has not been mentioned. Doctor Strange he's putted along and through different things, but like, and now finally is coming, but like to the point where like I would kind of forgive them if they just forgot about that story.
Treated him like the leader from Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, totally. Like, just because it feels like such an abandoned plot thread. But good on him.
But so that sort of leads nicely into what we're getting next year, which is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in May 2022, then Thor Love and Thunder in July 8th, and then Black Panther Wakanda Forever on November 11th, 2022.
That's getting pushed back, surely.
Feels like it, because they're still filming.
Well, and they delayed it because one cast member is kicking up a fuss about vaccinations,
allegedly. Yeah, and then also I believe next year as well we're getting the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, but that'll be more of a Disney Plus discussion, I think. That's
a film franchise follow-ups episode, not a review. Yeah, okay. So what do you want to see that hasn't been confirmed based on the 2021 slate? What do you think of Phase 4 so far? What are you vibing?
Movies wise, I think they've been reasonably strong. It'll be interesting to see, like, because the multiverse is obviously because you've got with Loki, WandaVision, No Way Home, and Multiverse of Madness. I very much feel like they're setting up something, and it's going to culminate in Multiverse of Madness. That it's like, I wonder, okay, is this, because there was the Infinity Saga, which was the first 3 phases. Is this the Multiverse Saga?
I think so. I think that's yeah. It feels like that's where they're gunning for, and like, canon be damned in a way. It's not canon be damned in the sense that they're ignoring their own canon, but like, and I've said this 100 times, particularly about Deadpool, but I've said this 100 times, like, did the MCU now technically start in 2002? Because that's when
you love
Sam
that.
Raimi's Spider. Well, no, but is it not a relevant conversation to have? Like, if you're wanting
it's a relevant conversation, yes.
If you're wanting a comprehensive viewing party of the MCU, should you be watching Venom and the Spider-Man movies and the Deadpool movies?
Well, that is the thing that it's interesting that I did think this interesting while watching No Way Home, that it's crazy for a movie to have required you to watch 5 unrelated films from almost 20 years ago.
Yeah. It is crazy, I agree.
Yeah. It's like, obviously they're both Spider-Man films, but they are supposed to be completely different universes.
They never intended for them to cross over, I think, is the big part as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I just think that's it's like we talked about this in the Venom film franchise follow-ups, that like it felt like there was such a quality control on the MCU for so long, whether you think they're great or not. I'm not saying that. I'm more meaning like they kept Sony at arm's length, keeping them out until they got to Endgame, and now it's like it's busted wide open, and now we can acknowledge other iterations of characters and other studios' versions of Marvel characters and things like that. So
Yeah.
all this to say, I very much want a Spider-Man 4. I want to see Tobey Maguire again. I'm not so, even though it probably has the more story opportunity, I'm not as interested in the Amazing Spider-Man 3. I know that's the one that a lot of people are specifically clamoring for. I'd rather a Spider-Man 4, but fuck it, do all of them. I actually think that would be fine. I actually think people would figure it out. You know?
Yeah.
Release three live action Spider-Man movies in the same year. Do it. Do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is Marvel's 2021 slate. Movie wise, in 2 weeks' time we are going to talk about the 5 TV shows. But again, not going to rewatch them. So
no.
But like with those, we have episode breakdowns that we can look at to easily remind ourselves of the plots and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody, for our MCU recap part 1. Next week, we're going to be doing The Matrix for Film Franchise Fortnights. And after the TV show Marvel episode, are we doing Most Disappointing of 2021?
So Most Disappointing will be a little bit later just because of the way holidays are falling and lining up through people's schedules and stuff.
Exciting stuff, so stay tuned for that, everybody. And if you liked this, please check out our earlier MCU episodes. Some critically acclaimed podcasts, if the critics are people who listen to our podcasts. And yeah, check that out. You can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on YouTube. We've got 2 YouTube channels. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can join our Discord. There'll be a link to that in the show notes. Come and tell us. Genuinely interested, what are people's rankings of the various MCU movies this year? And also, if you want, you can join our Patreon, which is www.patreon.com/cultpopture, where you can give us all sorts of stuff to do, like watch different things, or you can contribute to the post-credit scene, which is something that we're going to do right now. Welcome along to the post-credit scene, everybody. This is a segment at the end of each episode where if you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/cultpopture, you get to give us something to talk about in this, the post-credit scene. Richard, what is the post-credit scene today?
Were you hitting your microphone as you said that?
Not the microphone, but I was hitting something.
Oh, well, here's a fucking appropriate question.
Is it really?
Yeah, so this comes to us from Alexander McDonald, who writes, we answered this question in the episode, who asks, what would you consider to be your most memorable cinema-going experience, for good or ill? I mean, I've answered for good. Like, it's Endgame and No Way Home are going to be things I remember
same.
forever. Yeah. And, like, I've been scrolling through TikTok and Twitter like looking for cinema reaction videos, and you know, when I'm feeling down, I will watch in-game cinema reaction videos because they give me goosebumps. So we can answer for ill then. There's 2 that come to mind. One was when I went to see The Lion King, the 2019 remake, which I actually enjoyed the film enough, you know. Cinema was so fucking packed, and it's like there's a cinema chain in New Zealand, specifically in Auckland, it's worse, that is like just so much more like, you know, people have gone about cinema prices these days being ridiculous, but it's like literally $26-$28 for a ticket kind of thing. And so at $2 to $12 more than their competitors. And we went there for some reason, opening night, and like the place was just like packed shoulder to shoulder with people, just like a disgustingly huge crowd. Couldn't move around, and like just trying to, and it's also like the popcorn is just sitting like it's like a buffet style with popcorn and drinks and stuff like that. You grab them off the shelves, so there's like no real rhyme or reason to how it works. Then we got into cinema. The trailers were so fucking loud. I couldn't like hear people next to me talking, or like the ads, and like not just trailers, because I do like watching the trailers, but like the ads were just being blasted. It's like I actually like needed to put my hands on my ears just to like you know, be able to hear myself think. But then when the movie started, I could hear people talking across the other side of the cinema, because they were just talking at full volume. They're talking at this volume, just going blah blah blah. How's it going? Yeah, whatever. And then, as more than 20 minutes into the movie, so after half an hour of trailers, because they play half an hour's worth of trailers at ads, then 20 minutes into the movie, beyond that, people were still walking in to the cinema, and they had their phones out with the torch on, trying to, and just shining it up, not like, you know, keeping it very low and just trying to keep an eye on, like, find out what the row numbers were, but like just kind of shining it any which way but loose. And then, spoilers for The Lion King, when Mufasa died, people took flash photography of the screen, like worst cinema going experience of my life. And the other one is when you and I, when we went together to go see Wonder Woman 84 last year. Not only was the movie garbage, but again, exorbitant cinema prices. It was the first big release like that year, pretty much, due to the pandemic, and just the people behind us talked at like a normal volume throughout the whole film.
People forgot how to go to the movies,
and that's it. And it was actually like people have forgotten how to go to the movies, and it was the thing that made me be like, yeah, cinemas need to change or die. You know, like. Yeah. I also, a similar sort of situation where when I saw Far From Home, someone walked in late and was trying to find their seat with their phone and was like calling out to someone, and the guy next, and I kind of sitting next to a stranger, kind of like, you know, like did that sort of, you know, like, and the guy was like, oh yeah, this is, you know, you pretend you don't know them kind of thing. I was like, oh yeah, but didn't really get what he meant by that. And then he was like, bro, over here. And it was like I was sitting next to the guy's friend. And so, yeah. What about you?
When I went to see The Lorax in 2012 with my sister, I sat I sat next to like a mother and there was a mother and her kids in front of me, and then I was sitting a couple of rows away from a bunch of 12-year-olds. And one of these 12-year-olds, the one sitting closest to me, kept like, you know, commenting smart ass comments on the movie throughout, being, you know, replying to the characters and shit like that. And a couple of times the mother sitting in front of us turned around and asked them to shush, and he'd go shh back at her. It happened like 2 or 3 times. After the last time, it was, you know, maybe halfway through the movie, I leaned across to him and I said, "You're not funny. You're ruining this for everyone. Shut the fuck up." And then he didn't make a noise for the rest of the movie. And that, for good, was the best cinema going experience.
Yeah, oh my god. Yeah, I'd be riding so high after that. Like when you tell someone to get out of your seat. Yeah. The socially distanced seats at the moment. At the cinema,
we don't have that. We don't have socially distanced seats.
Yeah, so we have that. But a girl sat right next to me yesterday, and I chucked my mask on my seat next to me. And then so I had to lean over and be like, excuse me. And because I, like, for ages, I was like, I think she's sitting on my mask. Like, what should I do? Anything? And then so I had to lean over and be like, hey, sorry, I think you're sitting on my mask. And then she was like, oh my God. And then I was like, I'm glad. Like, imagine if I just hadn't said anything, and then, or like hadn't noticed, and then get to the end of this like 2.5 hour movie, and just this girl's butt has just been on my mask, and then I have to wear it out of there. Yeah, it'd be fucking hot.